Good afternoon, guys. I'll be talking about writing your Ruby in style. So before I start, can I have a quick audience poll? Like, how many of you have been working with Ruby only in the last 1 year? Please raise your hands. Okay, that's good. And how many of you consider yourself at an intermediate to expert level in Ruby? Don't worry, I won't ask any questions. Okay. Yeah, so let me first tell you who this talk is not for. Some of you might already know. Basically, if you are working alone and if there is no one else in the world who is going to see your code, then probably this talk won't be worth much to you. So, and who is this talk for, right? So it's mainly for people who are new to Ruby and probably they might be coming from some other languages or they might be just fresh out of college. And so this is also for teams where you have a mix of people, some of them Ruby veterans, some of them fresh to Ruby, some of them veterans of other languages, and who are just starting out with Ruby. And it is also for open source contributors, people who send out their code out in the open and or they want to contribute code to the open source projects. So, like some of you might think, okay, why should I worry about style, right? So I would say style matters. So why bother about it? So let me tell you a quick story. So there was a young chap called Rubo, and Rubo was fascinated by computers right from childhood. He learned programming in school and college, and he knew a few languages. He loved Ruby, so joined a company where it was full of very senior Ruby folks, right? And within no time, Rubo started coding away in Ruby, and he felt that, yeah, he has found just the right language, and he felt right at home. But as soon as he committed some code, immediately the response from the rest of his team was something like this, right? And Rubo was like this. So what do you think went wrong? Open question. Okay, maybe. What else? No, sorry? No comments. As in you don't want to comment, or he didn't write comments? All right. So this is what was wrong with him. Unlike the people he was working with. Right? So our community is full of people who are not just experts of the language, but also of style. And so as some of you might know who are coming from other languages, that they have official or pseudo-official coding standards for each of these languages and many more. But in Ruby, does anyone know if there is any official coding standard document or a style guide or whatever? I guess not, right? And with Ruby, the problem is there are many ways to do things, and all of them are right as far as the Ruby interpreter goes. So how do you decide, how to select specific Ruby idioms and how to select specific syntax, right? And that was the problem with Rubo as well. Yeah, so I was saying we need a style guide in Ruby. And so some of you might wonder, okay, what is exactly a style guide? And so a style guide is basically nothing but a document or a set of guidelines which allow you to, know what is a better way of writing code, what is a better way of laying out code, and Ruby has so many idioms, so when to use what. And the idea is to achieve a level of elegance and simplicity in your code. So effectively, it helps you decide whether you want your code to look something like this or this. Right? And some of you might, who are like experienced with Ruby and have been coding for some time, you might wonder that, okay, I have my own style. So why should I worry? So I was talking about functional correctness not being enough. Visual consistency is something that we expect, especially big code bases to have. When you are scanning a piece of code which has changed hands and a lot of developers have contributed to it, you might find that sometimes you get a sort of a friction to understand it because of different styles. And of course, having a style guide for your project sort of helps avoid the differences of opinion and the religious wars that ensue, right? And once you avoid all these problems, your team's productivity and maintainability of your code base will increase as well. So effectively, who owns the style guide? It's the team which owns it. As we know, if no one owns the code, everyone owns it. And same goes for the style guide as well. And you as a team or as an individual developer as well should have a target of writing code which lasts for thousands of years, although we know that nothing lasts forever. And those of you who attended the Tao of Ruby talk. So this is still something that we should keep in mind, right? So I'll quickly jump into some examples. Don't want to bore you with stories. So starting with code layout. So these are some of the guidelines that we have. So starting with your file encoding, right? How many of you know which file encoding your code files are stored by your editor? So this is something which is often ignored, and you run into issues with errors like some invalid ASCII character, and then you realize, oh, my file is not encoded in the right encoding. And same thing for your Git commits. How many of you know that there are different line endings in Windows and Mac and Linux platforms? So I have faced a lot of issues with these, so I have mentioned it here. Basically, your line ending should be managed by Git and not by your editor, because if you are a Windows developer and you commit with your Windows line endings, your Mac and Linux colleagues will come after you. So, and then around indentation, always use 2 spaces rather than 4, or tabs. Absolutely hate tabs, so don't use it. Check your editor settings. There will be a setting to use soft tabs. Select that and set it to 2 spaces. Avoid single line methods. I know some of you are big fans of how concise Ruby scripts can be, but when you are writing code, avoid methods like this, and prefer methods with body at least to be in multi-lines. Again, spaces are used to improve readability. So around your operators, around your braces for your blocks, you always use spaces. There are some exceptions like this one where spaces are not used. Indent when as deep as case. This is again, of course, it's controversial because some of you would like your vents to be nested, like with one level of indentation. So that's up to you to decide. Always, avoid line continuation. Line continuations are bad. It makes the code highly unreadable. If your lines are getting too long, extract variables, extract methods, but don't use line continuations. Chain methods. So if you have a big chain, then of course you have to wrap it to the next line. When you do that, make sure that you don't leave the next line just hanging. It should start with a dot so that you know that it's part of a chain. Align multi-line parameters with the method call. So instead of so both of these are bad because first of all, first one doesn't give you a proper view of what all values are being passed. Second one is one level indent, which is fair enough. Sometimes it's okay, but the most readable one is the one which has all the values aligned. And as a team, you can debate over it and decide on what you want to do. Now, okay, quick question for those of you who are sleeping. Which one of this is correct? Okay, yeah, that's true. So when you have values like these, where you have to stretch your brain to figure out how many zeros are there, you can always make use of the 1000 separators anywhere in your number, and you could make it more readable. When you are writing APIs, especially open sourcing code, always try to use some form of RDoc documentation for your API docs. This is not necessarily true for any internal code, which is also well covered by tests. So there it becomes a pain to keep maintaining the documentation, but for APIs it's a must, because for new developers who are unfamiliar with your libraries, this is the first place that they will go. Around syntax, use iterators over for loops. There are interesting side effects of for loops. And most of the times, like personally, I haven't come across any sort of popular open source code which has any other loop apart from each. Maybe a while sometimes, but not for. Favor the ternary operators for one-line statements only. Don't align all your if and else's and ends in one line. But on the other hand, if your ternary operator is getting something like this with multiple levels of nesting, fall back to your if else. Always focus on readability. If your developer has to spend like 5-10 seconds just to parse this statement, then it's not worth it. Always put the condition in the same line. I've seen some people do this mistake, so make sure that doesn't happen. Favor unless over if, especially for negative conditions. Sometimes if not, some condition is also fine, but most of the times unless is the better choice. And same goes for control flow. Use the OR operator to use the flow. Omit the parentheses around parameters for methods, especially those of which who are part of the DSL or have keyword status in Ruby or attribute accessors. Prefer braces over do ends, especially for single line blocks. It's much more concise and much more readable. But avoid braces for multi-line blocks. Avoid return when it's not required. Only use return when it's absolutely required to make sure that the value is returned. Avoid self wherever is not required. So we all know that we are accessing everything from self. So don't just clutter or make your code more verbose. The exception here being if you are writing to an accessor, self accessor, then you have to use self. Otherwise, it will become a local variable. Around naming, of course, as we all know, naming things is very difficult. And so these are some of the guidelines around it. Use your variables which are understood by most of your teammates. Use camel case always for classes and modules. And if you are writing some acronyms like XML, HTTP, then keep them as camel case. Always use snake case for all symbols, methods, and variables. So this is the example for that. It's easier to just go with the good rather than try to mess with the bad, right? And for constants, always use screaming snake case. For any predicate methods which returns true or false, always end it with a question mark. And you can find tons of examples of it in your Ruby and Rails libraries. Around comments, I would say don't do it. Okay, comments I personally consider as bad because some of them are just superfluous. The code itself speaks for itself. Otherwise, it's a piece of bad code which needs refactoring. So instead of trying to put your effort in commenting on it, try to put your effort in refactoring it. If you are indeed putting comments, make sure that you keep them updated. Otherwise, it will, backfire. And effectively, don't do it. let's say sometimes you might find yourself in situations where you can't immediately do something, and you feel the need to add some to-dos and fix me's and all. So use these annotations. But once you have added it, make sure you do the to-dos. Otherwise, no point. Around classes and modules, make sure your classes are structured well and consistently. So the order of things, this is the one of the most common structure that you find. But as a team, you need to decide and identify what's the right structure for you and go with it. So when you have a domain object, always try to implement a 2S so that whenever you are printing it, maybe logging it somewhere, you get not the object class name with an object ID, but an actual usable string representation of your object. And if you are just writing basic accessors, try to use the attr methods and not re-implement the wheel or do it by hand. So some of you might be wondering at this point, okay, what if I don't like these rules, right? Because I have my own rules, and I just don't like these rules. So first of all, this is my answer. Okay, not encouraging anyone to do this with their cars, but, and of course, these are just guidelines, so you can choose to ignore them or follow them, it's up to you. And one thing I would like to say is if you do have a style guide, try to follow it consistently. But when you have consistency coming in the way of, things like readability and stuff like that, especially within these levels of consistency. So at a very high level, you have consistency with your style guide, which is important. But at the same time, if you are getting your code inconsistent with your project or the module in question, then it's bad again. And readability matters a lot. So when you are looking for consistency, look for, okay, at what level I am in, and decide whether you want to be consistent with each of these things. And of course, readability, as Azmat would tell you, if you can't read your own code later, then it's definitely not readable. All right, so when to break these rules? When applying the rule makes it less readable, you are okay to break it. To be consistent with the surrounding code is also important, as I said. But look at it as an opportunity to clean it up and not just ignore it completely. So if you have some time on your hand, make sure that the whole class or module gets cleaned up and not just the code that you are writing. So some of you might be wondering, okay, all this style guide is fine, as we as a team have come up with this. How do you enforce it? Because not everyone would necessarily follow it in your teams. So some of the suggestions that I have is make it as a standard team practice. So like one of the things I do is when I start a new project is to discuss with the team and identify a few style guides, customize it if necessary, and ask everyone to go through it. Keep an eye on digressions from that. Select and draft a style guide specifically for your project. Make it a must read for everyone. And that should be like part of your onboarding process for new developers on the team. And if you are using some IDEs with support for things like inspections and stuff, use that. That will help a lot. And of course, there are some tools available to check your style. I'll mention a few of those here. You can always integrate these tools with your CI, which is continuous integration server, if you like, and use a live style guide, which you can always keep up to date, customize it, contribute it back. So I'll mention a few of them which are open source, so you can look at them, use them, and contribute to them. Commit your IDE settings, especially when you have many dev machines, and if each of them get out of sync, then some of your devs will start violating these guidelines. And when you are reviewing any piece of code, especially for senior devs here, make sure you point out the violations in the context in which the code has been committed. If you just go to your developer later and say, okay, dude, you are not following my style guide, he will say, yeah, I'll follow it from next time. And that will never happen, right? So use GitHub inline commit notes. They look like this. So as soon as a commit is committed, you can put a note on the exact line where the violation has occurred. So some of the tools, one of them is Rubocop, which is an open source tool based on a Ruby style guide, which is again a community-driven Ruby style guide. So you use this, go through this, and unfortunately I couldn't get the demo set up, so I have this backup slides here. So this is a trivial example, of course, but it gives you an idea. On top you have some piece of code which has some sort of violations of the guidelines, and on the bottom you have the output that Rubocop gives. All these rules are customizable, so you need not worry if there is some rule which is not part of your team's style. And once you fix all those issues, you get a green. So it's sort of like your TDD. And since it's all command line and stuff, you can always integrate it with your CI server if you want. And so our Rubo, right? He has learned his lesson and used all these tools, and finally he's a happy member of the team. And these are some of the references that I have used for this presentation, and you'll of course find a lot more. Many of them, like the GitHub style guide, are also very useful. Apart from that, these are some of the tools you could check out, which will help you analyze your code and correct them. So I would say, just want to give a message that give it a shot in your teams and see if it works for you. Of course, I can't guarantee that it will do wonders for your team, but at least it's worth a try. And once you start using a style guide, like the Ruby style guide, make sure that you contribute back, send PRs with things you don't agree with, or things which are missing in the style guide, which you have figured out as a team. So send PRs, contribute back to the community. So that sort of brings me to the end.